Hello again, and welcome back to Dive Deep Stories. Today, we're traveling somewhere extraordinary, a place where time bends and reality softens, where the ancient sands of Egypt still whisper secrets that most have forgotten. We're going to meet the gods who walked in twilight, the ones who guarded the threshold between worlds, the deities whose names have faded from history books, but whose power still echoes through the cosmos. So find somewhere comfortable, let your breathing slow, and stay here with me as we descend into the forgotten temples of sleep. The river between worlds. There is a river that flows through Egypt. You know its name, the Nile. But what you may not know is that the ancient Egyptians believed this river had a twin, a mirror, a shadow that flowed not through the land of the living, but through the land of dreams. They called this the waters of the Duat, the Underworld. But it wasn't a place of punishment like we imagine hell to be. No, it was something far more mysterious. It was the place where the sun went to rest, where the stars were born, where every soul traveled each night, whether they knew it or not. And at the edge of this river, there was a boat. Listen closely now, because this is where our story truly begins. The boat was old, older than memory. Its wood was dark, carved from trees that no longer grew in the world of daylight. And standing at its helm was a figure most people have never heard of, a god whose job was simple, but sacred. His name was Aken. Aken was the ferryman of sleep, the keeper of the boat that carried Ra, the sun god, through the night. Every evening, when the sun dipped below the horizon, Ra would step into Aken's boat, and together they would journey through 12 hours of darkness. But Aken didn't just carry the sun, he carried something far more precious. He carried the sleeping souls of humanity, every dream, every quiet breath, every moment of rest was held within his steady hands. The Egyptians believed that sleep was not emptiness, it was travel. When you closed your eyes, you weren't just resting, you were crossing over, sailing with Aken through waters that no waking eye could see. And Aken, he never slept himself. He stood watch, patient, protective, making sure that everyone who entered his boat would wake again when morning came. The serpent who never sleeps. But the journey through night was not safe. The waters of the Duat were filled with dangers. Creatures of chaos, spirits of confusion, demons who wanted to swallow the sun and drown the world in eternal darkness. This is where another forgotten god enters our story. A god whose form was strange, but whose heart was fierce. His name was Mehen. Mehen was a serpent, not a small snake, not even a large one. He was colossal. His body coiled around the entire boat of Ra, 7 loops, 7 sacred rings of protection. His scales shimmered like bronze in the dim light of the underworld. His eyes never blinked. While Aken steered the boat, Mehen wrapped himself around it. He became the walls, the shield, the living fortress that kept the darkness at bay. And when enemies approached, when the demons of the night rose from the waters with teeth like broken stars, Mehen would strike, fast, silent, absolute. But here's what makes Mehen so beautiful. He didn't fight out of anger. He fought out of love. Love for the sun, love for the dreaming souls aboard the boat, love for the morning that would come if he could just hold the line, one more hour. The ancient Egyptians understood something we've forgotten. They knew that rest requires protection, that sleep is vulnerable, that dreams need guardians. So they honored Mehen. They carved his image on their walls. They whispered his name before closing their eyes, because they knew that somewhere in the dark, a great serpent was watching over them. Let yourself drift for a moment. Imagine you're on that boat. The wood is smooth beneath you. The air is cool. And all around, you can feel the presence of something vast and ancient, keeping you safe. The 12 hours. The journey through the Duat was divided into 12 hours, 12 chambers, 12 trials, each one different, each one necessary. In the first hour, the boat entered through a great gate, the gate of twilight. Here, the light of day still lingered, soft and golden, like honey spreading across the water. The souls aboard were still half awake, still clinging to the memories of their day. Aken would speak to them gently. "Let go now," he would whisper. "You're safe. Rest." And slowly, one by one, they would release their grip on waking life. In the second hour, the darkness deepened. The water became black as ink. This was the hour of forgetting. The souls aboard would begin to lose their names, their faces, their worries. Everything that made the day heavy would slip away into the current. Some people feared this hour, but Aken knew it was a gift. Because only when you forget can you truly rest. By the third hour, the boat had descended into true dream territory. Here, the laws of the waking world no longer applied. Time moved strangely. The boat might travel forward, or backward, or sideways into memories that hadn't happened yet. Mehen's coils would tighten, because this was where the tricksters lived. Spirits who liked to twist dreams into nightmares, who fed on confusion and fear. But Mehen was patient. He had been doing this since the first sunrise. He knew every trick, every shadow, and he never, ever let them through. Point. The fourth, fifth, and sixth hours were the deep hours. The hours where souls touched something beyond themselves, where they remembered what it felt like before they were born, where they glimpsed the edges of eternity. The ancient Egyptians believed these hours were sacred. They thought that in the deepest part of sleep, humans could speak with gods, could see the future, could heal wounds that medicine couldn't reach. Aken would guide the boat carefully through these waters, his hand steady on the oar, his voice a low hum that sounded like wind through papyrus reeds. And then, the seventh hour arrived. The hour of the enemy. This was the darkest hour, the most dangerous, the hour where Apophis waited. Apophis was the great serpent of chaos, the opposite of Mehen. Where Mehen protected, Apophis destroyed. Where Mehen coiled around life, Apophis tried to strangle it. Every night in the seventh hour, Apophis would rise from the deepest trenches of the Duat. His body was impossibly large. His mouth could swallow mountains. His hate was older than starlight. And every night he tried to stop the boat. This is the moment where the Egyptians believed everything hung in balance. Would the sun make it through? Would morning come? Or would the world be swallowed by endless night? Aken would stand firm. Mehen would bare his fangs. And together, along with other gods who joined them in this hour, they would fight. But here's something beautiful, something true. The fight didn't always look like violence. Sometimes it was simply endurance. Mehen would wrap himself tighter. Aken would keep rowing. And the souls aboard would sleep on, unaware that they were the very reason the gods fought so hard. Because you see, the Egyptians understood this. They knew that every morning was a victory. Every sunrise was a battle won. Nothing was guaranteed. Nothing was automatic. The light had to be earned, protected, loved into being. And when Apophis finally retreated, wounded but not defeated, slinking back into the abyss, the boat would sail on. Stay here with me. We're halfway through the night now, halfway through the journey, and the story is about to change. The turning point, the 8th hour, was the hour of transformation. Here, something miraculous happened. The souls aboard the boat began to remember themselves, but not the small selves they left behind, the larger selves, the ones they'd forgotten over years of living. Ancient texts describe this hour as the place where souls were reassembled, where the scattered pieces of a person, the child they'd been, the dreams they'd abandoned, the love they'd lost, all came back together. Aken would move among them quietly, his hands glowing with a faint, gentle light, touching each soul, reminding them, "You are more than you think. You are older than your body. You will continue." This is why the Egyptians weren't afraid of sleep, because they trusted the journey. They trusted Aken. They trusted Mehen. They knew that every night was a small death, and every morning was a resurrection. In the 9th hour, the water began to change. It grew lighter, warmer. The darkness was still there, but softer now, like charcoal instead of pitch. Point. This was the hour of anticipation, the hour where even the gods began to feel hope stirring. The 10th hour brought sound. Do you hear it? The distant sound of birds, not yet singing, but waking, rustling their feathers, testing their voices. The souls aboard began to stir, not fully awake, still dreaming, but their dreams changed, became lighter, more colorful, filled with warmth and gold and the promise of something just beyond reach. Point. Mehen's coils loosened slightly. His eyes, which had been hard and vigilant all night, softened. He knew the worst was over. He knew they'd made it through another night. The 11th hour was the hour of reunion. Here, the boat began its ascent, rising from the depths of the Duat, moving toward the eastern horizon where a gate stood waiting. The souls aboard began to remember their names, their faces, the people waiting for them in the waking world. But they also carried something back with them, something they'd gathered in the deep hours: wisdom, peace, a strange knowing that everything was connected, that they were part of something vast and beautiful and ongoing. And then, the 12th hour. The return, the gate of dawn stood before them, tall, radiant, made of light that hadn't yet touched the world, but was about to. Aken steered the boat toward it. His face, usually so calm, would break into a small smile, because this was his favorite moment, the moment where he got to deliver everyone safely home. Mehen would uncoil himself, slowly, carefully, his great body sliding into the water one last time. He would dip his head to Ra, to Aken, to the souls aboard, and then he would descend back into the Duat to rest, until evening came again. The boat would pass through the gate, and in that instant, the sun would rise. All across Egypt, people would open their eyes. They'd stretch, yawn, feel the warmth of morning on their skin, and they'd whisper a prayer, a thank you, to the ferryman they'd never seen, to the serpent who'd protected them, to the gods who'd carried them through the dark. Thank you, Aken. Thank you, Mehen, for bringing me home. What the ancients knew. Now, let's sit with this for a moment. Let's understand what the ancient Egyptians were really saying with these myths. They weren't just telling stories. They were describing an experience, the experience of being human, of being vulnerable, of needing rest but also needing protection while we rest. Point. They understood that sleep is not nothing. It's not empty time. It's a journey. Every night you cross into another realm. You become undefended. You let go of control. And that takes trust. Trust that you'll wake up. Trust that something is watching over you. Trust that the morning will come. Aken represented that trust. He was the steady hand, the patient guide, the one who never abandoned his post, even when the journey was long, even when the danger was real. And Mehen, he represented the fierce love that protects what is precious, the part of existence that refuses to let the light be extinguished, the guardian who doesn't need thanks or recognition, but simply does the work because it matters. These gods weren't asking for grand temples or gold offerings. They were honored through simple things, through gratitude, through awareness, through the act of lying down to sleep and saying, "I trust the night." In a way, the ancient Egyptians were wiser than we are now. We treat sleep as an inconvenience, something to minimize, something that gets in the way of productivity. But they treated it as sacred, as essential, as a gift. Let yourself feel that, just for a moment, the sacredness of rest. The Forgotten Temple. There was a temple once in the western desert of Egypt, small, barely noticed by archaeologists. It was dedicated to Aken and Mehen together, a rare thing. Most gods had their own temples, their own priests, their own festivals. But this temple was different. It was built for twilight gods, for the quiet ones, the ones who worked in darkness. Inside, there were no grand statues, no gold, just smooth stone walls carved with images of a boat, a serpent, and hundreds of sleeping figures, their faces peaceful. Travelers who were afraid of the night would stop here. They'd light a small lamp, leave a bit of bread, and whisper a prayer. "Aken, guide me. Mehen, protect me." And then they'd sleep, right there in the temple, on the cool stone floor, wrapped in simple cloth. And in the morning, they'd wake refreshed, calm, as if something heavy had been lifted from their chest. The temple is gone now, lost to sand and time. But the energy of it, the intention, still exists somewhere, in the liminal space between waking and sleeping. In the moment when you close your eyes and feel yourself beginning to drift. That's where the temple lives now, inside us, inside that sacred pause. The language of dreams. The ancient Egyptians had a complex relationship with dreams. They believed dreams were messages, sometimes from the gods, sometimes from the dead, sometimes from the deepest part of the self. They kept dream journals, consulted dream interpreters, built entire libraries dedicated to understanding the symbols and stories that unfolded during sleep. Point. But more than that, they believed dreams were creative, that the world was literally dreamed into being by the gods, that everything we see, everything we touch, was once just a thought in the mind of the divine. So when you dreamed, you were participating in creation. You were touching the same power that made the stars and the rivers and the sand. Aken understood this. That's why he was so gentle with the souls aboard his boat. He knew they weren't just passengers. They were creators, dreamers, each one of them shaping reality in ways they didn't fully understand. And Mehen? He protected not just the boat, but the act of creation itself. Because if the dreams were destroyed, if the night was conquered by chaos, then nothing new could ever be born. This is why the Egyptians said that Mehen coiled around the sun, because the sun wasn't just a ball of fire in the sky. It was the ultimate symbol of creative potential, of energy, of life itself. And every night, that potential was vulnerable, needed protection, needed a guardian who would never flinch, never retreat. Think about your own dreams, the strange landscapes you've walked through, the impossible things you've seen, the feelings you've felt that don't exist in waking life. That's not random. That's not meaningless. That's you, touching the creative force of the universe. The Hymn of Sleep. There's an ancient text carved on a tomb wall in Luxor. It's called the Hymn of Sleep. Most people have never heard of it, but it's one of the most beautiful pieces of writing from ancient Egypt. It goes like this: Blessed is the ferryman who knows the way. Blessed is the serpent who never tires. Blessed is the night that holds us. Blessed is the dream that teaches us. Blessed is the dawn that returns us. Blessed are we who travel and return. Simple words, but profound. The ancient person who wrote this understood something essential, that life is a cycle, that we're always traveling between worlds, that nothing stays the same, that we die a little every night and are reborn a little every morning, and that this is good. This is how it should be, because if we never entered the dark, we'd never appreciate the light. If we never forgot ourselves, we'd never remember who we truly are. If we never surrendered, we'd never know peace. Aken and Mehen aren't just ancient myths, they're maps, ways of understanding the territory we all cross every single night. Let yourself rest in this knowing. You're part of an ancient pattern, a rhythm that's older than civilization. The other guardians, Aken and Mehen, weren't alone in their work. There were others, lesser-known gods who appeared at different points in the night journey. There was Sia, the god of perception and awareness. He stood at the prow of the boat, helping souls understand what they were seeing in the dream realms, teaching them to distinguish between true visions and empty fantasies. There was Hu, the god of speech and sound. He hummed constantly, a low, resonant tone that kept the boat moving through the water. The Egyptians believed his voice was what held reality together, that if he ever stopped singing, everything would dissolve into silence. There was Heka, the god of magic, but not magic like we think of it, not tricks or illusions. Heka was the god of transformation, the force that allowed one thing to become another, water into wine, darkness into light, fear into courage. He would move through the boat during the deep hours, touching souls who were stuck, who were clinging too hard to old pain or old identities, and he would whisper, "You can change, you can let go, you can become." These gods worked together, a team, a family, each one with their own role, each one essential. And here's what's beautiful. They never fought over glory, never competed for worship. They simply did the work, night after night, millennium after millennium. Because the work itself was the reward. The joy of seeing the sun rise. The satisfaction of knowing they'd helped someone make it through the dark. Point. The eternal return. The ancient Egyptians believed that this journey, the journey through the Duat, wasn't just a metaphor. They believed it was real, that every night, quite literally, they traveled with the gods. And they believed that this journey didn't end with death, that death itself was just another night voyage, a longer one, but still navigated by Aken, still protected by Mehen. They prepared for it, built tombs that looked like boats, filled them with supplies for the journey, left prayers carved in stone. May Aken guide me, may Mehen protect me, may I see the morning. But here's the thing. They didn't wait for death to practice this trust. They practiced it every night, every time they closed their eyes. They knew that if you could trust the little darkness, the darkness of sleep, then you could trust the big darkness too. And so, death wasn't terrifying. It was familiar. Just another boat ride, another journey through the 12 hours, another chance to be transformed and returned. We've lost this wisdom. We treat sleep and death as problems to solve, inconveniences to minimize, enemies to defeat. But what if we remembered? What if we honored the ferryman again? What if we acknowledged the serpent? Not through grand rituals, not through complicated beliefs, just through simple awareness, simple gratitude. The gods don't need our worship. They never did. They just need us to remember that we're held, that we're carried, that we're loved through the dark. The gift of forgetting. One of Aken's most important gifts was the gift of forgetting. In the second hour of the night journey, he would help souls release the day. Let go of worry. Surrender the need to remember everything. This was controversial among some of the other gods. Some thought memory was too important to lose, that everything should be kept, cataloged, preserved. But Aken knew better. He understood that carrying too much is exhausting, that some things need to be set down, that forgetting is not failure, it's liberation. Think about your own sleep, the way dreams dissolve when you wake, the way you can't quite remember what you were thinking about just before you fell asleep. That's not a flaw. That's Aken's work. He's helping you let go, helping you travel light. Because if you carried every worry, every memory, every fear into sleep with you, you'd never rest. You'd just lie there, weighed down, drowning in your own thoughts. Aken takes those burdens, not permanently, not forever, just for the night. He holds them in his boat while you sleep, and in the morning, he gives back only what you truly need. The rest, he lets it dissolve into the water, released, transformed. This is why people often wake up with solutions to problems they couldn't solve the night before. Why things that seemed impossible at midnight feel manageable at dawn. Because Aken has done his work. He's carried you through. He's let the unnecessary fall away, and he's returned you lighter, clearer, ready. Mehen's wisdom. Mehen rarely spoke. In the myths, he's almost always silent, just watching, protecting, coiling and uncoiling. But there's one story where he does speak. It's brief, just a few words, but they've echoed through centuries. A young god, newly arrived in the Duat, asked Mehen, "Aren't you tired? Don't you ever want to rest?" And Mehen looked at him with those ancient, unblinking eyes and said, "This is my rest, this watching, this protecting. This is how I sleep." The young god didn't understand. He thought rest meant stopping, ceasing, doing nothing. But Mehen knew differently. He knew that rest can be active, that peace doesn't require stillness, that sometimes love is the deepest form of rest. When you love something enough to protect it, when you find purpose that matters more than comfort, you tap into a different kind of energy, a sustainable one that doesn't run out. Mehen had been coiling around the sun for eons, and he would continue for eons more. Not because he had to, but because he chose to, because this was his joy. There's a lesson there about finding what's worth protecting in your own life, about discovering what you'd stay awake for, what you'd fight for, what you'd wrap yourself around and refuse to let go. That's where real rest comes from, not from escape, but from meaning. the Song of Dawn. In the 11th hour, as the boat approached the eastern gate, the souls aboard would begin to sing. It wasn't planned, wasn't rehearsed. It just happened. One voice would start, then another, until the whole boat was humming with wordless melody. The Egyptians believed this song was what actually opened the gate of dawn, that the sun couldn't rise until the souls sang it awake. Think about that. The morning didn't just happen automatically. It required participation. It required the voices of dreamers calling out to the light. Every person aboard contributed, even those who thought they couldn't sing, even those who'd been silent their whole lives. In that moment, they found their voice, and Aken would smile, and Mehen would lift his head, and the gate would begin to glow. This is what community really means. Not just being together, but creating together, calling the light together, helping each other cross the threshold from night to day. You're part of this song, whether you know it or not. Every morning when you wake, you're joining that ancient chorus. You're helping the sun rise. You matter. Your voice matters. Your presence on the boat matters. Coming home. We're near the end of our journey now, the end of this story. But of course, it's not really an ending, because this story repeats every single night, for every single person. The boat is always sailing. Aken is always steering. Mehen is always watching. And you are always traveling. Tonight, when darkness comes, you'll board that boat again. You'll leave the shore of waking behind, and you'll drift into waters deeper than any ocean. You might not remember the journey, might not recall the faces of the gods who accompanied you, might wake with only the vaguest sense of having traveled somewhere far away. But that's okay. The journey still happened. The protection was still there. The transformation still occurred. Because that's what the gods of twilight do. They work in the spaces we don't see, in the gaps between thoughts, in the silence between heartbeats. They ask for nothing, expect nothing. They simply love, simply serve, simply hold the line between chaos and order, darkness and light. And all they want from us is that we trust them, that we let go when it's time to let go, that we climb aboard without fear. So tonight, remember Aken, remember Mehen, remember the boat that never stops sailing. Remember that you're held, carried, protected. And in the morning, when you open your eyes and see light streaming through your window, remember that you helped create that light. Your journey through the darkness made the dawn possible. This is the gift of the forgotten gods, the gods who work in twilight. They don't need fame or recognition. They just need us to remember that rest is sacred, that darkness has purpose, that we're never, ever alone. Thank you for traveling with me today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying here in this sacred space of story and stillness.